Welcome back, mamas. Y'all, today we are going to talk planning do's and don'ts, how planning can make your life so much less stressful as a mama, and what to do to make that happen. So let's get to it. Do you wish you had control of your days, that you had a rhythm, but instead feel overwhelmed, scattered, and like there's never enough time? You're in the right place. I'm Danielle, a recovering workaholic, wife, and stay-at-home mom of two girls. I've learned how to reclaim my time and find purpose and freedom so I can be present with my kids and feel like myself again. Here, we embrace where we are, but we don't stay there. So if you're ready to trade the chaos for clarity, the guilt for grace, and the endless to-do list for aligned flow, grab the kiddos a snack and toss in that laundry because I know you're multitasking, and let's do this because your time, your purpose, and you matter. Okay, mamas, so today I want to talk about planning. I talk about it often, but I want to get into kind of the nitty gritty, the do's and the don'ts, because planning, yes, it can be hard. It can seem like there's no possible way that you can plan as a mama, as a busy mama, as a mama with littles who are running around, and you're thinking, how am I ever going to plan with these littles? They are very unpredictable, right? You never know when you're going to have a day that maybe they're not doing so great. They're melting down. They're tired. You didn't get a great night of sleep. They didn't get a great night of sleep, whatever the case may be. And the truth of the matter is you can plan. You can still plan, and that planning will save you so much time, so much effort, and so much headache and stress and overwhelm if you do it. And I know I resisted this for a long time. And there are a lot of things that you can do when you're planning that I would say are don'ts of planning, right? There are do's and there are don'ts. And I have learned this the hard way. And so I want to share today with you kind of an overview of how to plan, how I plan, how I think is the most effective way for someone who does have a schedule that can be very volatile, that can be very, needs to be flexible, let's just say, and it still be effective, right? It still makes sense. It still save you time, save you energy, save you headaches, right? This added stress, it can really relieve so much pressure that you're feeling. And so I do want to say that I completely understand that it might seem hard, that it might feel hard, and that at first, when you start doing it, you might resist it and you might still think this is just too hard. And I promise you it will get easier. And I want to read a Bible verse. It's actually Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11 that says, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it." And I am just telling you that planning, it definitely, to me, felt unpleasant at the time, painful even. But later on, once it produces this harvest of peace for you who you have taken the time and to implement this, the time and effort that it takes to plan is very, very minimal, especially once you start to do it and get in the habit of it. I know it might feel overwhelming at the time, but I promise you, if you just push through it, you will be so much better for it. So I'm going to start with an overview of just how I plan. This is not a science, right? It is not something where I sit there and I plan out my hours. I plan out, the whole week. I don't have it mapped. I don't take my week and color code it and try to say, I'm going to do this then and this then. Like, that doesn't work for me. Okay. What I do try to do is kind of do that on the actual given day. I don't do these like time blocks, get very specific on what I'm going to do with each portion of my day until the actual day. So what I actually do is, and I like to do this on Sundays, I sit down and I list everything that I have to do for the week. Everything that I have going on, everything that I know needs to get done this week, I will list it out. Okay. I list it out and then I prioritize it. So I prioritize things in two different ways. I prioritize things that are the most important thing to me for the week. And then I also prioritize what are the most important things to me for a specific day. And so while grocery shopping might not be one of my top priorities for the week, even though it really has to get done, right? But if I were to look at my week and say, I need to pick 3 things that have to get done this week, the grocery shopping might not make that top 3 list, even though I know it's something that has to get done this week. But if I know my grocery shopping has to get done on Monday, it might make my top 3 list that day, right? So on Monday, my top priority, or maybe my second priority for Monday, is going to be grocery shopping. However, it wasn't a top priority when it came to the whole week because I have other priorities that need to get done this week. And I know grocery shopping is going to get done because it has to get done, right? And so it is not one of my top 3 priorities that I list for the week, but it is a top 3 priority that I'm going to list for the day. Okay. So when I prioritize things, I prioritize them though in order of things that have to get done this week, things that I want to get done this week, and that if they don't get done this week, they are going to bother me. Then I prioritize things that I want to get them done this week, but if they don't get done this week, it might bother me a little bit, but I'll be fine. Like I'll be okay if this doesn't get done. It's not going to cause me super amount of stress if I don't get this done this week. And then there's things that I would like to get done this week, but if they don't get done this week, it's really not going to bother me at all, right? Like if they're my things that are on my list that are like, if I have everything else done, these are things I would like to do this week. So I always have those things prioritized on my list. Sometimes my list is really long and sometimes it's shorter, right? It just kind of depends on the week. Sometimes there are things that have to get done this week. Let's just say we know there's a birthday party coming up in a couple of weeks. And I know I need to get a present for that. That might make my list this week, but I know it is not something that has to get done this week. If I don't get the present this week, it's not going to bother me at all. However, it's going to make my list this week because I know it's coming. And if I'm out and about and I'm getting other things and I see something, then I'm like, oh, remember I have to get that birthday present. And if I've written it down and if I've seen it on my list, then I will remember. But if I don't put it on my list, then I won't even remember about it. And when I'm out and about, I probably won't even think about it, right? So those are kind of things that are flexible. But when it comes to the week of the birthday party, then that becomes if it hasn't already been gotten, that present becomes a must, right? Like it becomes a high priority on my to-do list. And it might even become one of my top 3 things I have to get done this week because it has to get done, right? So I hope that all makes sense. But one thing that I don't want us to do is just to make a list of things and carry it throughout our week. So what I mean by this is I make my priority list. I make my list, I prioritize it, and then I go through the days and I look at, okay, what day is best for me to do this thing? So I know that if I'm going to be out somewhere, like say I have an appointment on Thursday that's going to have me in a part of town where something on my list that needs to get done needs to be done in that part of town. Well, I might, even though that's something that has to get done this week, and even though it might be one of my top priorities, right? I am going to wait until I'm out in that part of town to put that on my day that I'm out in that part of town so that I'm not running around, earlier in the week all the way to that part of town. And then I realize, oh gosh, I actually was going to be out there on Thursday. I could have saved myself a lot of time not running out there on Monday or Tuesday when I was actually going to be out there on Thursday. I could have waited until then to get that thing done. Right? So when you take things and actually prioritize them, and then you actually take it one step further and kind of put them on certain days, it helps you to structure your week. It helps you to not have this to-do list that's a mile long that you seem like, oh my gosh, this is so many things to do. When you take it and you lay it out, when you break it down and you put these items on different days of the week, then you can say, okay, this seems much more manageable to me. This seems much more doable to me. One of my don'ts is don't just make the dump list, right? Don't just brain dump all the things that you have to do and then just look at that list all week long because it is going to overwhelm you. It is going to be one of those things that is overwhelming. It's fine if you make that list and you work off of it. Like, it depends on how you are and how your brain works of how you work off your lists. But if you just make that list and then you're working off of that list alone without putting those items on days of the week, then it can get very overwhelming because when you look at that list, especially when you look at it at the beginning of the week and you see that you only got two things checked off of it or something like that, then you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm already so behind. And you wake up Tuesday and you're like, I am so stressed. Look at how long my list is. And how am I ever going to get all of this stuff done? So what I'm going to do is I am going to take my brain dump list, I'm prioritizing it, and then I am figuring out what days I think I can do those things on. And I'm writing those down on a specific day. So the way that my planner is laid out, right next to my brain dump list, I have all the days listed. And then I just write those items from my brain dump list right onto those days. Then when you flip the page, then I have my whole week at a glance. And I don't fill out anything on that calendar except for things that are like literal appointments. So, like if I have to pick up my daughter from school or pick up my daughter from drama or take somebody to dance or, I have a dentist appointment or we have to go to a funeral or a birthday party, whatever those things are that you have to do that have a specific appointment on your calendar, places you have to be, I put those on my actual calendar, the days of the week. But I wait till I get to that specific day to fill out the rest of the day. And that is when I also do my priorities for that particular day. Okay. So I come up with 3 top priorities for the week. And I'm like, if I get these 3 things done this week, I have like won the week, right? Like these are my 3 top things that I want to have done for the week. Now, sometimes they have to be done. Like they are my have tos. And sometimes I put things up there that are like, okay, I have to get these 2 things done. However, I really want to get this one thing done. So they're like my top 3 priorities for the week. So when it comes to, let's just say Monday, because that's the first day of the week when I sit down and look at this, I'm going to look at that brain dump list. I'm going to look at what I wrote on Monday, and then I'm going to look at my day and in the morning and say, okay, has anything changed since yesterday that I need to reevaluate, right? So at this point, maybe you don't know yet whether or not maybe you had a bad night, right? And so you're going to be tired or your kids are going to be tired or whatever it is, but you've got to go to the grocery. Like that has to be done today because there's no food and you've got to make dinner, right? So that's going to go on your list as well as other things that you need to get done today. It's going to go on your top 3 priorities. I want you to write 3. This is the way that I do it and the way that I encourage you to do it. 3 top priorities that you would really like to get done today. And then if you have anything else from that list that you had written on Monday, then go ahead and write that at the top of Monday as well. And then look at your day and say, okay, do I have any appointments scheduled for today? When do I think I can do all of these things? And this is when I like to actually kind of time block. And I do this loosely, like completely loosely. If I'm like, okay, I know the kids have to get off to school. And so from this time to this time, I know I'm doing that. Then I'm going to eat breakfast. And, if I have to teach jazzercise, that's usually like right after breakfast time. And then what does my day look like after that? If I teach jazzercise, I'm going to want to shower. If I have to, let's just say, record a podcast, I have to go to the grocery, I have to, whatever those things are, I'm going to try to like figure out at what point of the day that I would like to get those done. Now, for me, this is not a set in stone type of a thing. Still, my days are never really totally set in stone. It is all just my plan that if this were an ideal day, this is how the day would go. right? And so I lay it out on that particular day. And then sometimes I literally am like, if things have gone on track, then I usually don't have to look back at my list because I can remember. But if my day has gone crazy, I can be like, oh gosh, what was I supposed to get done today? And I can look back at just that day. What did I write down at the top of my day that I wanted to get done this day? And I can say, okay, I got to the grocery. If you knocked off a couple of things off of that list and it has been a really long day and you really don't feel like you can knock off anything else, look at that day and be like, you know what? That's enough. Or maybe I could still knock this off, but you know what? I'm pushing the rest to the next day or whatever. And if you're able to do that at that point, or maybe you're not, right? Like you haven't gone to the grocery yet and you still have to do that, go and do that, right? Get it done. But you now can see, okay, I know these are the things. I am not looking at my entire brain dump list. It is already hairy, right? Like I've already had a crazy day, and I'm not going to go at that point and look at my brain dump list. I'm not going to look at all the things that I have to do for the week, because when you are on a specific day and it is not gone as planned, you are going to get super overwhelmed if you start to look at the week as a whole. This is why it is so important, I believe, to sit down at the beginning of every day and just take a couple of minutes. And if you've done your work on Sunday, this becomes super easy for you to say, okay, what has to get done today? Right? What has to get done for today? I'm going to write a list of all the things that I want to get done for today. I know which ones have to get done. And then I'm going to kind of script it out in an ideal world. If that doesn't happen, it's going to be okay. But I like to front load my day to where if things go wrong, I've either number one, gotten the things already done, or number two, if things go wrong, I can still do my most important things and still make it to the end of the day and have those knocked off. Hopefully that makes sense to you, because when you take and you look at your brain dump list, or you look at this to-do list that you've made, and it is, let's just say it's 25, 30, 40 items long, and you're looking at that and you've already had a bad day, you're starting off the week on the wrong foot. You don't want to look at that list that has all of these things listed. It's just going to make you more stressed out and more overwhelmed. You want to look at your list and say, okay, I already went to the grocery. I still have to do this one more thing. I can still do that today, and I'm still going to be okay for the rest of the week, right? Because you have only put 2 to 3 things that are have to musts on each day of the week. When I front load my week, I sometimes do that as well, where I will say, okay, what are my things that have to be done today? But also, if I don't have a must do, like if I've already gone to the grocery on the weekend and I don't have to do that thing, sometimes I will put more things on a Monday or at the beginning of the week. Then that way, if they're done and if they're must do's for the week, then I feel better when I get to the end of my week. And then I can breeze through some of the things that were on my want to do list or on my, need to do, but I can put those off list. Because remember, you are always in control. This is your life. This is your schedule. This is something that you have said has to get done. But also, sometimes we put this unneeded pressure on ourselves that the thing, when you think about it, it might not really have to get done this week, right? It might not really have to get done this week. You might want it to get done this week, but if it doesn't get done this week, is it going to be the end of the world? This is something that you need to think about as well, because sometimes we put all this unneeded pressure on ourselves, and doing your calendar this way relieves some of that. But when you are putting this extra pressure on yourself because you feel like you need to get everything done, your house has to always be clean and your fridge always has to be stocked with X, Y, and Z, or you just might be putting expectations on yourself that for this moment in your life might not be something that can actually happen, right? Like you might have too many expectations for yourself. And so I want you to think about that when you are setting these priorities. Like, is this truly a 2 or a 1 in priority? Or could this be a 3 or maybe even a 4 if I really were to think about it, right? I wanted to read another quote here. This one is from Ed Jacoby that says, pressure comes from within and so must be mastered from within. I know this from firsthand experience as well because I am a type A, I'm a control freak. I like things to be a certain way. I typically like to do things myself, right? But it is not always best for your mental health, for your well being, for your children's well being, for everything to be a certain way or for you to have everything this certain way, right? Like you may have set these expectations for yourself that might be a tad bit unrealistic given the moment that you're in right now, the season that you're in of your life, right? And so our pressure comes from within. So we must learn how to master it from within. We must learn how to recognize that pressure when we are feeling it and know whether or not it's something that is something we're like kind of putting on ourselves or whether that pressure is like a healthy pressure that needs to be there, right? So there are times when you might be putting this unneeded pressure on yourself. In that same vein, one more quote that I would like to read. This one is from Thomas Erickson that says, pressure, demands, and expectations create stress and can make you feel self-critical and powerless. You can find it difficult to sleep or may feel physical pain in your body from putting this pressure and these demands and these expectations on yourself. It can literally cause you to feel sick, right? You might definitely be having difficulty sleeping for multiple reasons, but you might be causing yourself this extra added stress that doesn't need to happen that can be prevented if you loosen what your expectations are a little bit, quit putting so much pressure on yourself, and then also take the time to plan. Take the time to plan. So, what are my like do's and don'ts? I'm going to reiterate them in like a quick little list here for you. So, do make a list and prioritize it, right? Make your top 3 for the week, but then also take it a step further and make your top 3 for the day. Be realistic. Set your expectations realistically and then check in daily. Like, do you need this to happen today? Check in the morning, check in midday, and then check in at the nighttime too. Like, check in and see what you have done for that day. What did you get done today? When you start making these lists, like I said, you don't want to look at the big list, but you do want to take and put these bite-sized pieces and then check in at the end of the day. What did you get done today? You might be surprised that you checked off most, all, or some days you're right, you won't check off any. But there are some days also where you have a lot of appointments or you have a lot of other obligations. And on those days, you want to be realistic with yourself and just set those expectations. You might not be able to put top 2 or top 3 on that day. It might just be one thing that you can get done when you have all of these other things that are actually scheduled on your plate that day. So things you don't want to do, number 1, do not forget to prioritize. Do not go off your list alone. So don't go off just that brain dump list. Really portion it out throughout the week. Don't second guess yourself. Like if you've done this at the beginning of the week, do not second guess yourself. Do not all of a sudden think, well, I know I said I was not going to do this till the end of the week, but I'm now like, I'm freaking out that this might not get done. So I'm going to derail what I said I was going to do and do this instead, right? Sometimes we have these things that we know need to be done, and we've decided that they're better on a certain day because we were in a place where we were planning from not panic, right? We were planning from a place where we were calm. And that is probably when you're going to make the best decisions, right? If you've decided to put this on a certain day, it's probably meant to be there. And in the stress of another day, you are all of the sudden putting more stress on yourself by trying to knock knock something else off your list that was really on a different day. So that can happen when you are in that state of overwhelm, is when you'll tend to start putting this unneeded stress or create even more stress for yourself. Also, don't stress about yesterday. Like yesterday's gone. So whatever didn't happen yesterday, do not stress about it. Just look at what can happen today, right? What now needs to happen today and pivot. Yes. If there was something on yesterday that needed to get done and didn't, then yes, pivot and put that on a different day. Put it on today, possibly, but can it go on a different day? Like really pivot. And in the morning, when you're doing your planning, plan for that thing that didn't happen, but don't stress about what didn't happen yesterday. And then do not focus on what you didn't get done. Do not focus. Like, don't get to the end of the week and focus on all the things that you didn't get done. Focus on what you did get done. But pro tip, like you do want to look back at the last week and say, what worked for me? What worked? What didn't work? What would I like to see be done better? What felt hard, right? If there's something that felt really hard to you about the way that you did your week, take that into consideration. And what would I like to change, So these are questions where you can look back, like on your Sunday, like I said, not in the stressful time, but looking back, what did feel hard? What did I like? What could I have done better? What would I want to change? So those are like things that you can do once you start to get into this routine and ask yourself those questions about the previous week. So I hope this has helped you. I hope this is something that you feel is productive. I know planning really, really is super important, especially for moms, but it can feel really hard. And it's something that I struggled with. And so I'm sure you might be struggling with it too. I would love for you to embrace the simplicity of this, to ask me any questions that you might need to ask. Shoot me an email. If you would like help with this or anything else, you can go to prioritizewithpurpose.com and check out my coaching that I offer as well. I would love to help you there. But otherwise, I will see you right back here on Thursday. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, Mama. If so, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and then hit share and send this to a mom who needs this in her day. I'll meet you right here on Thursday. Keep smiling, y'all.